Hi, Juan Moss here from Spokane Film Project. Welcome to video production during COVID. Our first guest today is Jackie West from Spokane City. Hi, Jackie, how are you?
Hello, I'm doing good, thanks.
Can you tell us a little bit who you are, what you do for the city?
Sure. So I am the film coordinator for the city of Spokane. I've been in that role, going about 6 years now. But I'm also the operations manager for the Development Services Center, Code Enforcement and Parking, which you would think is very separated from filming, but it's actually, all of those pieces are tied in together. Got you.
So if I was coming and wanted to shoot here in town, you would be one of the first people that I would reach out to.
Mm-hmm.
With our challenging times that we're in, what is the city's response right now about video production?
Well, I would say the city's response in general is that we're open for business. And business just looks a little different, and how we're contacting our customers is a little bit different. So we've worked really hard to make ourselves as accessible as possible. And so you can email, phone, we have permit chat. There's many ways you can contact us. And then it's, other than not being able to meet face-to-face, we're really trying to accommodate all permitting.
Can you tell us how your office is dealing with the recent governor's approval of us coming up and kind of the requirements for shooting?
So a lot of what we're doing with companies, and this is companies in general, not just film production, but we're actually asking the company themselves to self-monitor. So we're going to go through the same notification process that we're familiar with, the same master film permit process that you're familiar with. And in the case of inspection or anything like that, we're still coming out to the site. The only thing that's really different is we are expecting that the companies themselves, production companies, are also following the governor's mandate. So our inspectors will come out, or if we come out on site, we will be masked up, we will be following the governor's orders.
Will you be asking for them to share a plan with you of how they're going to follow through with that?
Really, I'm only asking for that when I see a potential conflict. So I'm obviously looking for the group size. I'm looking for adjacency to other businesses. I'm asking for more public notification, letting businesses know we may have a congregation of people on the sidewalk, and this is why. Most filming, unless it's on private property, is usually happening outside. And so that's an area that the governor has said outside is fairly friendly for COVID social distancing. So in most cases, we're able to accommodate it. I'm not necessarily looking for your full COVID plan, but I am reminding you to go back to the governor's orders and really follow that proclamation.
You talked about permitting, master permitting. There's a lot of folks out there that I can tell you right now are fearful of anything when it comes to permitting, right? Can you talk a little bit about the process here in Spokane, in the city of Spokane, and how it is so different than, let's say, in Seattle and other cities?
Right. Well, Spokane in general is very open to filming, very open to the economics behind filming. We're all about the arts here, and so we try to support it as easily as possible for the production company. I would say the majority of permits that I do are actually film notifications. So I have a very simple checklist. It's on the website, and I say, evaluate. Are you doing any of these things? Are you closing a street? Are you closing a sidewalk? Are you going to have equipment on a sidewalk that's going to potentially interrupt pedestrians? If you're not doing any of these things, just notify me. Just let me know that you're in the neighborhood and kind of the film activity that you're doing. The reason I like to get a film notification is we use it to show the economics behind film production. We use it to show how many people are coming to our community to film. And if I ever got a complaint, I would be able to point back and say, yep, they notified me. I know what that activity is. Let me explain it to you. I would say maybe we do 2 master film permits a year. Most of them can fall under that notification. But even the master film permit is a little bit more paperwork. We've removed the $1,000 deposit, so that's no longer necessary. Your insurance is really covering, that proof of insurance is really covering you for that. And And that's really more involved when you are closing streets, sidewalks. Perhaps you need, traffic control plans, or you need police assistance, or any of those other pieces of a larger production. That's when we would look at the master film permits. Most of those are really intended to help you coordinate. And that's my primary position, is coordination. And I'm so lucky to be in the department I'm in, because I know the engineering, I know the streets, I know the parking, I know all of those pieces, and we'll all get in a room together and we'll actually go through, hey, are there any potential roadblocks to your project? Did you know about this event? Did you know that you'd have to be off this street at this time? Problematic detours, all of those things, and we just talk through it. And it's a free process that we offer to any film production company that wants to come in and just say, hey, what it would look like to do this.
I can personally say, because I've worked with you on both sides, for those of you guys out there, between Z Nation and independent films that I was either part of, working directly with Jackie on getting things permitted, doing that bigger process. But then on the other side, you and the city have been such great supporters of the 50-hour slam, and teaching, helping us teach independent filmmakers how to do just a film notification and that understanding. But the accessibility that you offer is fantastic. This woman is, like, on the weekends of the 50-hour slam, she's monitoring all the permits and sending me emails if she's got questions to go find out from that team what's going on. We really appreciate that very much. And I think it's a great example of how the city is so film production friendly. With that being said, right now, this is our prime time of shooting. Are you starting to get any feelings out there, people coming back, or?
Not as much as I would have expected. I think I've only gotten 3 kind of nudges lately. And of them, I think 2 were commercials. So I would expect to see a lot more just general filming, but I'm not necessarily saying that. That being said, I think, what's happened, there's a lot of confusion around permitting in general. And people may be afraid to reach out in case they heard no. And I would always say, please reach out. No is the farthest thing from what we want to say to you. We can almost always make something happen for you. And I'd rather hear about it and know that this activity is going on, so that I can encourage other activity to go on, than being afraid to even ask. So I forgot to mention earlier too, when you said, what is it like coming from other jurisdictions? I shared in the beginning that a lot of times we get calls from out of country or out of state, and they're like, walk us through this film permit process. And I'm like, well, there's a checklist on the website. You're probably not going to do any of those things, so it's just a notification. And they're blown away. Right. Blown away. And I think that's what's so special about the city of Spokane, is it recognizes the very specific needs of filming. It recognizes you don't have 2 weeks sometimes. You might have 2 days. You need to get in and get out. You might have a timeline you didn't expect, and plans change, and we can be flexible. We could do all those things.
That's fantastic. I had a question and it just slipped out of my head. Because it's about the film notification. So even though I'm Juan Moss and I'm going to shoot my own little short film, and I'm shooting it at home or at a friend's house, why is it important for me to do the film notification still?
Well, I think it's important. The first reason is I report on the numbers, so I can show our administration and our council, look how important filming is. And then I also talk about filming isn't just one person generally. Filming is a whole backdrop of support that is required. There may only be one actor, but you're not seeing all the other things that are around and what that means. Filming supports our students. It supports our colleges, it supports the arts, and it is a business. I mean, it is a business like any other small or large business. So that's the first thing, is I like to report on the numbers. I also like to show where our filming activity is coming from. And so I like to show, is it local? Local dollars, local actors, people that are utilizing, the filmmaker's benefit, the tax benefit. But I also like to show that people are coming from far away. We get a ton of filming from the UK. And why are they coming to Spokane? I mean, it's just interesting that we're bringing in sometimes, 12 to 15 people from overseas to film in Spokane. And so why are they coming here? Also, too, I like to be notified in case I do hear something. We had a complaint that there was a house on the South Hill, and it was lit up all hours of the night with bright lights, and they got a code complaint. And if they hadn't told me that it was filming activity, I don't know who would have responded, but it was like we nipped it in the bud. Oh yeah, that's, even on private property, yep, that's film activity that's happening. Oh, okay.
Well, that's great. And I think that's a part a lot of people don't realize, that those numbers are important for your job, right? And for communicating with, you were saying, City Hall and also council.
Yep.
What do they look at when they're looking at those numbers? Why are they important for them?
I think they're important because the city of Spokane puts a lot of stock into being customer friendly and business friendly, and that's definitely both of those things. I think that we're supporting the arts is really important. I think they've seen when big productions have come to town, and they understand the finances behind it is really important. And then I would also say we talk a lot in permitting about dollars. So when you do a film permit, you're not paying for a film permit. You may be paying for traffic control or the other support, but it's free. And one of the first things that we're always asked is, what can we do to make filming easier? Well, we don't charge for a permit, and we provide them access to all the coordination they need and an experience of a huge group of subject matter experts that can make their job go smoothly. And if their job goes smoothly, they're going to want to come back. Right. And we're just going to keep that cycle going. So,
I know that a lot of folks know of a lot of the local commercial houses that we have, like Hamilton, North by Northwest, Comrade Studios, or just to mention a few. What other kind of people have reached out to you in the past? I know a lot of this stuff because I've had conversations with you and with Kate, who we'll be talking to later, but a lot of people don't know about a lot of shooting that happens here. What kind of shooting actually comes from out of town?
A lot of reality TV. A lot of reality TV, which I was shocked. We get a ton of house hunters and DIY kind of shows, tiny houses shows. We get sports competitions. We had a female wrestler that had a whole reality TV show about her. We get kind of the outdoorsy reality TV. And from some of our more infamous, we get a lot of serial killer documentaries.
They kind of come back every so often.
Yeah. And I think it's just really one, but they like to tell that story. Right. And so that's a lot of it. We get a lot of local people that have won a competition. Again, there was numerous 2 years ago where all of these Spokanites had won these competitions, and they were coming and doing the family shots and the B-roll, and this is where their origin story kind of filming. So, yeah, I would say the majority of our filming is about Spokanites, for the good or the bad, but it's about our local people.
I don't believe this exists, but would the city like to see it? I know that Visit Spokane and Kate, like I said, will be on with us later. Would it be a way to find a way to promote ourselves better to outside, to get more product, especially now, since we are
Right.
able to shoot.
Right. I think, as we found with Z Nation, the big thing about that show is like we can literally be anything. Z Nation showed us all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast, and we had every scenery type they needed. We do post-apocalyptic pretty well here. But I think that telling people how easy it is would be huge for film production companies. We're relatively inexpensive to board. Our food and cost of living is pretty low. We're so accessible and so easy to work with. And we're like just small enough that within government, like everybody knows one another and they know who to ask to get things to open up for
Sure.
people and to coordinate and accommodate these kind of productions. And I think we've done it enough that maybe we know like the pitfalls too. Like we know what areas to avoid. We know what first Monday in May to avoid. We know all the events and everything, and we're all talking all the time. I certainly would like to see the local production crews, be able to stay here and not have to leave Spokane, to leave the university and stay here. And for our kids to stay here and think like this is a really cool, creative place to be. I have lots of options. And it doesn't matter where I'm at. If I'm a film editor, I'm an actor, post-production, any of it, you can do it all here. Would be really great. So yeah, I'd say like, yes, let's advertise.
Fantastic. Last thing, if there was two things that most of us who are working on a daily basis in the industry, we are aware of everything you've been talking about. But if those out there who are still learning their chops on the skills and doing their shorts and stuff, if there's two things that you want them to take away from today's talk, what would that be?
I would say, please call me. Please call me or email me or shoot me a film notification. It's really easy to find. It's really easy to fill out. And sometimes I can help you find those other things you may need. And I would say, too, not only can I clear the path for you, I can also direct you to some things that, I have a little booklet where everyone likes to film. Huntington Park, below the Monroe Street Bridge, like those kind of pieces. But I can also help you, or I can direct you to people that can help you for the pieces that you're missing. So that film notification would be one. The second one would be, I'm super excited when I see any project come in. And I'm super excited to follow up on it and tell everybody I work with. And I think that is the biggest misnomer about government, is I don't think people realize how invested the people are of government and how excited and just so into the projects that come in. And because it's good for our city.
Yeah.
So.
No, and I'll attest to that is true because we have one yearly meeting, you and I, every year before the Slam. And my favorite part is the look on your face as I tell you what the criteria is.
I know, I'm all excited about the criteria. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming with us
Yeah.
today. And please take care of yourself and the family. And I know your kids are going back to school, so and be safe.
All right. Thank you.
Take care. Okay, boys. We all good? Thank you. That was perfect.
Awesome.
Are we on? All right, sorry about that. We had a little technical difficulty there for a second. That was pre-recorded with Jackie West from the city last Friday. She was unable to make it today to do it live with us. We do have open on the chat. We have somebody monitoring. If you want to ask questions, please don't hesitate throughout the program, and we will have a Q&A section at the end. If you have some questions right now that you might want to try to ask of us right now about what you just heard, please do. While I'm giving you a couple minutes of that, I want to bring up, if we can, please, gentlemen, the film notification form. So, guys, this is the form that she was talking about that you should be filling out for any project that you do in the city of Spokane. It's super simple, super easy. Those of you that have done the SLAM, you've been taught how to use this. The one thing that I'll add is the fact that it does not list the fact of drones, but what the city expects you is to follow the FAA regulations on drone shooting and the procedures as well as the licensing that is necessary for drone shooting in the city. But you would notify them on this form that you are doing the drone shooting on that as well. Remember, too, that this form is important because she uses this form to go back to the mayor's office and city council about the numbers of video productions happening in our city and showing how viable our industry is. Adam, do we have any questions coming up?
So far, based on just the chunk here, and the question was, are there any repercussions or fines for not obtaining a permit? And in your jurisdiction, well, hold on, in the city of Spokane or further. So basically, are there repercussions or fines for not obtaining a permit within the
So
area?
is there any, I'm sorry, with the feedback, I heard two different things.
Oh, gotcha. Are there any repercussions or fines for not obtaining a permit in the area, basically?
That's a question directly for her, but the film notification thing is kind of like the way I feel about it, it's a honest approach as you saying, hey, I'm doing this, we're shooting this stuff, I'm taking responsibility for those dates in these places that I'm shooting at, and that I'm following the regulations that the city's asking us to follow. So it's really a thing on us filmmakers and videographers and digital storytellers to take that responsibility upon ourselves. There's not a direct ramification, but if you fail to do that, and then on top of that, you don't follow the rules that have been listed there, it doesn't bode well in our community, and then it might affect future productions. Something someone always taught me from when I first started doing this industry was, you have to think of film production like you think of camping. And what's the first rule about when you go camping? You leave the camping site cleaner than when you first got there, right? Than when you received it. The same concept, because you want, if somebody else from another group is going to come and film somewhere, we don't want to have to take on the burden of somebody not being responsible on handling stuff properly. So think of it that way. But again, it's important to help support those numbers. Actually the amount of activity, and even if recently, I think on the Spokane Film Project Facebook page, we posted up the survey they were doing about the arts. There's another good component because it spreads itself further out on how we behave and how we interact with our community, and it allows our community still to be supportive and allows our community to embrace us coming into their homes, into their areas to shoot stuff. Anything else? Okay, just in case you have any other questions or want to know how best to reach Jackie, gentlemen, if we can bring up that card. Here's her information, and she can always be reached at the city. Plus, there's the link for the permit is simple on the site. And if there are further questions that you guys might want to ask her, please reach out to her directly. All right, I'd like to move on next to our next guest. Our next guest is coming in via Skype from Seattle. And if we can please introduce Melissa Purcell. Hello, Melissa, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Juan?
Good. For those out there who don't know who you are, can you tell a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am the Northern Business Agent for IATSE Local 48. We represent all of the film crews in our jurisdiction is Washington, Oregon, Northern Idaho, and all of Montana. We have two business agents, myself, based here in Seattle, and C. David Cottrill, who is based in Portland, Oregon. I'm also a prop master by trade, been in the business for about 30 years. Yeah.
Great. No, that's what I was going to ask you. But besides that, what else are you doing? So how is since the governor has opened this up, has it picked up a little on your guys' side of the state?
Yes, it has actually. It seems that we're pretty busy with commercials and corporate spots right now. Yeah.
And how is it affecting the production itself? Have you participated in any of them that you could tell us how the requirements and the regulations are affecting the shooting?
You know, I have not been on set, and I have not. I've just been hearing from our members and trying to speak with producers as much as possible when I learn about the work. I've really been focused on making sure that the producers and production managers understand what the safety supervisor position is all about, making sure that they've hired somebody exclusively for that role, and just mostly trying to make sure that the state protocols and the recommendations of the unions are out there, so that everybody's working safe, and we can hopefully continue to work as long as possible if everybody stays healthy.
I'm so excited to have you on here because I want to approach this conversation twofold. One is with your being a union member and a BA agent. Let's talk about the relationship between employees and employers right now under the COVID requirements. What are things that employers should be thinking about when they're talking to their potential crew?
I think one of the super important things is that, well, in our state, you need to have a safety plan, right? So it's a state requirement, and I think that it's very important for employers to hire. We are recommending this safety supervisor position is somebody that has been an on-set medic, because we feel like as there currently aren't specific requirements for that position, our on-set medics certainly have training in infectious disease control, OSHA 30 training, other things that the unions are recommending. So I think that safety supervisor position really needs to be part of prep with the employer, with the producer, mapping out what that safety plan is that then the safety supervisor essentially upholds while the shoot is happening, and that the producer and the employer really must get that information out to their crews prior to filming and make sure that there are safety meetings happening and that everybody has their concerns addressed ahead of time, so that really employees feel comfortable saying yes to the work. That's why I think that communication is pertinent at the top end of the job.
And there's two aspects, right? You have to think about. I mean, people automatically think of video production. They think of what's happening on a set, but there's also the office. There's an art department creating props or getting stuff ready to shoot. So those would be different plans and ideas that you would have to use in those areas?
Yes, yes. Thank you for mentioning that. You need to have safety supervisors at each of your locations. And on most commercials or corporate spots, yes, you have a production office and the art department might come and go from there somewhat. These days, folks really somewhat are working very remotely. They might be out shopping for the art department or doing some builds. And so, yes, you do need to have safety plans and supervisors in all of your work sites specifically.
What is because I'm privy to a little bit of more information than some, but the union's actually working on trying to create some COVID supervisor or personnel training, right? How's that looking?
Well, see, we're in this odd interim period. The joint unions, SAG-AFTRA, IATSE, Teamsters, DGA, are all in joint conversations with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, the AMPTP, and so until that really is signed off on, we just have sort of the joint union's recommendations, and that recommendation is that there should be a health safety supervisor, which was being called the COVID compliance officer. Through negotiations, that title has really changed. So HHS, the health safety supervisor, is what is being recommended. And the training is still very much up for negotiation. That's one of the, I think, sticking points as well as, of course, liability and how often people should be tested, et cetera. But, again, OSHA 30 is a minimum that we know the IATSE is recommending for anybody in that safety supervisor position. And I'm quite certain that they'll end up making certain that it's somebody with a medical background as well. Does that help answer?
Yeah, totally. And I understand we're still, listen, it's a day-by-day response, right, to this COVID stuff. And we're adjusting as we learn and we're going. I have a lot of friends who are working in Vegas and some in Los Angeles, and the ones in Vegas are already on kind of a bubble kind of scenario where they were in a hotel and stuff. And they're being he's in art department, he's being tested 3 times a week,
Yep.
So as a union member, let's finish that component. As a union member, what kind of questions should I make sure to ask when I'm talking to an employer? And if I have concerns, should I be reaching out to who? To you as a business rep?
Thank you. That's a great question. Whether you're a union member or not, I'll just sort of start right there. When you get a call for work, you should be finding out, talking about your rate, negotiating your rate. If you're department head, discussing your budget. But as a union member, you want to do those things, but in COVID-19 times, you also want to find out, what their safety plan is. And this is all probably conversations with a production manager, possibly a producer or a production coordinator. You also want to find out if it's a union job. I think if you have any difficulties or concerns while you're on a job as a union member, by all means, you should be calling your business agent. That's what we're here to do, is so that we can help mitigate and address any issues. But also on a job, especially during COVID times with a safety supervisor in place, if you're filming and you see stuff going on that you don't feel is safe, that's what that position is there for. So you should be speaking with always your department heads. That's sort of the first person to report things to. And then the department head can go to the safety supervisor, or you can go ahead and go to the safety supervisor if it's COVID-19 related issues. And then, of course, our business agents. Yes.
Going back to the supervisor, I have a quick question for you, because in our industry, we have several people on the set who are kind of responsible for safety and stuff. And there's between the first AD, and there's usually a shop steward on the set, as well as the key grip usually plays a heavy part in the safety components of the set. This COVID supervisor, is this person separate from all those people? And are they like the construction, my understanding in construction, it could be a personnel who's already on the construction site as part of the crew?
So this, again, is, still all up for negotiation. So in this interim period, I would say on set, it's certainly an independent position. So it is a position, you're not the AD and the safety supervisor. You're not a producer and the safety supervisor. It's an independent role exclusively because you have to have eyes on the set. You can't be doing an additional job. I would say in a shop or at the production office, depending on the size of the crew, if it's 2 or 3 people, it could probably be the production coordinator. It could be a department head within. But if you start like in a shop, if you're on an episodic or show of some kind, just like you really need to have a medic there because you're using, saws, et cetera, you should have a specific safety supervisor. So it will depend on those work sites specifically and the number of people and the kind of work that's happening there.
Okay, let's move on to those of people who maybe are not in the union and they don't feel like they have that additional support that the union brings, and individuals as yourself as a business agent brings. What do you advise an employee talking to an employer who is non-union?
I still would give the same recommendations. I mean, anybody that gets a call for work has to determine in these times if they feel safe and want to take that work. Everybody, of course, needs work right now, but everybody's feeling very differently about it. Some people are ready to go. Other people aren't interested in work right now. They don't feel comfortable doing it. And if you're somewhere in between, you need to determine that, through that specific job. It's not always going to be the same answer. So you need to find out what the job is, how many days you're shooting, if the rate is what you want it to be, and negotiating it to be where you need it to be, what your budget is. And then really talking to the person that's hired you about that safety plan, seeing where you're going to be filming. Are you shooting indoors? Are you shooting outdoors? If you're being hired by your department head, these same questions need to be asked of your department head, who should hopefully, as a department head, have those answers. And if not, they should be going back to the employer and asking them, even before you say yes to the job, right? Folks have different, not only do crew have different opinions on whether they're ready to go back to work, and that will be dependent on a job by job basis and how safe they feel on that particular project. But I'm seeing that employers, producers as well, vary vastly in terms of how serious they're taking this. I mean, everybody's certainly serious and confident in how this COVID-19 exists and how it's, the science behind it. But in terms of utilizing safety supervisors and really understanding how to put them in place and how much work producers are doing on their safety plans varies vastly. So it's important as a crew member to find out how seriously they're taking it.
Do you feel that we're going to see in our state, or do you hope we're going to see an increase more in production? And is it going to be smaller size crews? Do you feel that's going to be the best approach in these early stages? What's your personal opinion?
My personal opinion is that I think we are going to get busy. And I don't necessarily agree that the crews are going to be smaller. Certainly on this side, as well as over on that side of the mountains, we depend on quite a bit on commercials in the Seattle region, and very much corporate work for Amazon and Microsoft and this sort of thing. Those crews, I would imagine remain somewhat small, but small being, 10 to 20. Sometimes, there's, of course, an interview and it's a 4 or 5 person crew. But I suspect, especially, I guess, in my mind, with the Canadian border being closed, that I hope will actually help us in this state. That's always been a big competition for us. And, we continue to try and make sure that everybody's working safely so that we can, as I said earlier, stay safe and stay open as an industry. But at the same time, we still continue to try and organize work. And if we can get episodic going, as you guys all found out at Z Nation over there, you get episodic in your region and it can grow your industry if you stick around for a few years because all the other work continues on. And so crews grow. So we continue to try and develop work here as much as we can.
I just want to remind folks out there that you can ask Melissa questions through our chat. Do we have any already? Okay, we have some questions. So Melissa, before I go to that, before we go to the Q&A, Melissa, you personally, what are you doing to stay sane during this COVID times?
Who said I was staying sane? I would just quote the president of the IATSE, which covers more than just film. I mean, IATSE covers all the entertainment trades, from box office ticket takers to stagehands at conventions and live concerts, etc. And he said recently, for a time where the majority of our crews are unemployed and not working, the union reps are working harder than we ever have in our lives. And I think that's very true of both C. David and myself right now. There is just a tremendous amount of, safety task force and meetings with the state film commissioner and with producers. There's a recent Seattle Film Task Force, which we are hoping to push into being a film commission, which has not existed in our city in all of these years. There are conversations with crew. Anyway, it's ongoing. And so what am I doing to stay sane? I'm not doing much. I'm working and working and working, and then I'm taking my weekends off and trying to decompress. And occasionally getting away to the country for some camping where hopefully I can forget it all for a few days. And that's about it.
That's fantastic. All right, great. We're going to open that. We'll stay on, guys, let's stay on Melissa, and we'll open up the Q&A. Melissa, you'll hear Adam ask you the questions.
Okay.
Perfect. So first question was, Melissa was saying that the HSS should be a separate person on set, so it shouldn't be the first AD or producer, but a separate person. My question is, can it be the medic that is the person in charge of watching the set for safety adherence?
Thank you. Great question. No, is the simple answer. If I would say that if this medic were, at, for instance, a construction shop, that might be acceptable. But on set, the reason that we're saying that the safety supervisor needs to really be specifically a safety supervisor and not also your on-set medic is that you really need to be eyes. And we've already seen on jobs that happen down in Oregon, for instance. Sometimes when you're filming outside, there might be something, some pedestrian is, watching the show and trips over a bad sidewalk or something. And so it has nothing to do with the particular job, but there is a medic on set perhaps, and all of a sudden they run off to take care of a civilian, as it were, and they no longer have eyes on the set. So that was just an example of something that happened on a job where we actually had an on-set medic and we had a safety supervisor. So without those two positions, that person would have gone off to help somebody and then would not have been on eyes on set, if that helps answer that question.
You have another one?
One sec. There we go. Okay, so, and the second question was, what are the qualifications or skills that production managers are looking for in a safety coordinator, officer, manager?
Yeah, this is what is tough right now because we are trying to field these questions. Amy Lillard over at Washington Filmworks, who we are working in partnership quite a bit, is getting these questions all of the time. And as unions generally set the standard for the industry, and those standards are still not being fully negotiated, it's a tough interim period. So what we are recommending currently is to use on-set medics because, again, they have infectious control education. They also have OSHA 30, which is a higher level of OSHA training. And they have been on sets before. I think what's important is that you absolutely need to have somebody that has set experience so they understand our flow of work, especially as people work on safety plans and try and map out who is in what areas on set, working in zones or pods, etc. The other folks that we are recommending would be anybody that works out of the Hollywood locals and might be a member down there. They've had, so long as they're up to date on their safety passport trainings. So, for instance, there is a location manager here in our region who has been working as a safety supervisor outside of his location management job. There have certainly been some folks who have received online certifications. That's something I really want to touch upon for a minute. Those online certifications vary vastly. Our trainer has taken some of those classes and really does not recommend that that is training enough for a safety supervisor. Might be great training for all crew to take just to understand working on set during a pandemic, but it doesn't seem that the certifications online, they aren't certified by anybody other than that particular company who sends you a certificate and says that you are now certified. So a fair amount of who should be hired for that position really comes down to what sort of training they have, and also I've got to say personality. I've had conversations with somebody that worked in the Seattle area for 30 years and was a former producer and director recently, and she's been looking at getting into this industry because I know her and her personality, and she's looking to the various kinds of trainings that she can take. I would recommend her once she has her OSHA 30 training. The IATSE Local 488 is doing OSHA 30 trainings online for both union and non-union, and we can work at getting that information over to everybody there who might be interested. It's a 4-day training online, but is the base minimum that we are recommending for this position.
Actually, I got a question for you, Melissa. From the stuff that you're talking about, it feels like as a crew member, I should make a point to go through some of that training just so that I'm aware of things so I can ask better questions? Because it feels like the more knowledge I have, the better I can support the production and actually make sure to support the fellow crew people.
Absolutely. We, the IATSE came out with training. We have a plethora of education and training programs within the IA, and we recently received the COVID-19 safety trainings. I have not taken the class yet myself, haven't made the time for it, but we are highly encouraging all of our members to do so. And any of those online certifications, I'm sure some are stronger than others. I heard recently about a commercial where the production did require the crew to take, I think it was a 15-minute class or something online in order to be more prepared. I think it's a great idea.
Adam, do we have any more questions?
Just along the same lines, just within that, you may have been covered, but is that a new position that needs to be budgeted for, and is that covered by the union? Was a follow-up on that.
Great questions. So that is a position that we anticipate being covered by the IATSE. That's part of the negotiation right now. We anticipate that safety supervisor will be, perhaps, depending on the size of the job, it'll certainly be a whole department, right? And that department and position is going to be very separate from what you need for cleaning. So the secondary position and department will be certainly a cleaning crew of some sort, which we also anticipate being within the IATSE. And that will actually fall under the craft service department, which historically, years past, was really about also maintenance on set and not just about food. So it seemed like there was one other piece you just asked. Remind me, it was about whether or not it would be a union position, and something else you asked, I think.
Sorry, Adam just stepped away to deal with our other guest coming in, so we've lost.
Okay.
But it did make me want to ask you this question, though. It was along the lines of the cleaning crew component. What is that? I mean, we're going to get into that a little bit later. We have Kendra from Washington Filmworks, and we'll talk a little bit more of the breakdown of that components. But can you just share with folks what are you talking about?
Well, sure. I mean, a lot of during COVID-19, keeping things wiped down, surfaces, making sure that people aren't sharing equipment, or when equipment does need to be touched by multiple people, there's cleaning that needs to be done. So that's still very much being figured out as to each different production. Certainly a commercial, a 1-day or a 2-day shoot is going to be much different than a feature film, right, or episodic. So depending on the size of the job, you might have a crew of 1 or 2 people that are just, again, eyes on set and going behind everybody with appropriate cleaning materials. But, even those cleaning crews, we really feel need to understand infectious disease control, right? So you can't just send somebody in that doesn't take their job seriously, might not understand how to keep themselves healthy, and how to clean surfaces. So this is all something that is still being, the protocols and the requirements are still being flushed out. But I just wanted to make sure that people understood that the safety supervisor is not that person. They are not the cleaning crew.
Which makes me wonder, as an employee, one of the first questions to being to an employer would be, A, you're going to have a COVID supervisor, and B, what is that COVID supervisor's credentials, or at least what classes have they gone through, correct?
Yeah, I think that would be a great question to ask. Because again, we are really recommending, and I'm trying to get as many conversations as I can with producers, that it should be somebody with a medical background. But that's not necessarily always the case. People are hiring varying people. And so, yeah, I think it's good to find out, is this person a PA who has only been on one job previously, or is this person a former AD with how much experience, how much history of work, And I think personality does have a great deal to do with it, in addition to qualifications, in the sense that this person needs to have the authority and the autonomy from producers, from production, to call out anybody that they need to. I've said this over and over again to producers. You know, if you are hiring a PA for this position and they're not used to standing up to you as the producer, that's not going to work, because you know, anytime, for instance, the client steps out of their little pod and goes over and talks to the actor when they shouldn't be doing that, and that's in the safety plan, says that, you know, client will have no physical contact with the actor, as has happened on jobs, then that safety supervisor needs to go over to the producer and say, look, that's not part of the safety plan. Please, let's stop work right now and restart and pivot.
The other question I have for you, with your conversations with producers as you've been having them, and particularly, I know we've been talking mostly commercials and industrials because that's what's feeding our market right now. Do you feel that they're grasping that component as being an ex-producer who was impatient, that things will move slower, things are not going to be the way they used to on set, and we have to be more patient so that we're safe?
You know, it's still early, and I would say, to sort of answer that question, yes and no, because again, you know, the producers and the creative side of spots is still all over the place. I did talk recently to a producer who, you know, read a script draft and basically pushed back and said, look, we can't do that because of the number of people that were next to each other, or whatever it was. And I was super happy to hear and said as much. You know, I'm really glad to hear that you are pushing back, because early in these conversations, we all talked about how this is going to be highly dependent on how scripts are written and what the creative is. And it is producers' jobs to push back with directors or with, you know, creatives, in order to say, yes, this can be done now, or no, this can't be done right now. It has to be changed. So I feel like I sort of went away from the answer to your question, but refresh my memory.
You're good.
Okay.
Yeah. Adam, any last questions? Melissa, if you don't mind, we're going to share your information on a card that people can reach out to you via email.
Yep.
If there's any further questions, or even getting more information on the COVID supervisor links that the union will be putting together for union and non-union, we'd like to get that up for her. There we go. And Melissa, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us your knowledge, and we appreciate so much what you're doing for our industry, as well as all the other unions in our state that are participating and getting us back up on our feet and working. Thank you.
Thanks, Juan, for having us. Everybody stay safe.
All right, thank you so much. All right, we're going to be moving on to our next panelist, I guess, in, again, visiting from the other side of the state, and an ex-Spokaneite herself, Kendra and Cheryl. Do we have her?
Hello.
Hello, Miss Kendra. How are you?
Good. How are you today?
Very good. So let's follow. We just finished up with Melissa. We were kind of talking more about the employee-employer relationships. Let's talk a little bit. Let's back up a little bit. With your work now, since you're over on that, since they stole you away from Spokane over and took you over there to that side of the state to work with Washington Filmworks, let's talk a little bit about the work Washington Filmworks is doing or had been doing to get us to the point that we are now. Can you just kind of give us a brief summary of that?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief. So Washington Filmworks, essentially, we exist as an economic development organization for the film industry in our state. And so obviously when everything shut down, that included the film industry, and which means no work and no job and dollars for our people. And so we had to think quickly on how to do the best work we can to support everyone. And so in the beginning, we were doing unemployment resources, small business resources for everyone who was looking work. But then we learned that for an industry to get approval to go back to work, that industry had to submit a set of safety guidelines to the governor's office to get approval, and then you get that green light to go back to work. And we're like, all right, that's what we're going to do. And so we gathered a task force of around over 150 people from across the state, we wanted to make sure it had a lot of representation. So union, non-union, or entertainment union partners, people who work on commercials or features, every department, we just wanted to make sure everyone was represented. And then with that task force, we got to work on writing safety set guidelines for our state. And the first thing was researching, and I read over 60 very lengthy safety protocols that were being put out by different countries and states and studios, because everyone was sort of putting out their own set safety protocols, and reread them all and then sort of picked which ones we thought were the best and would work best for our state. And then with that task force, we essentially wrote a set of safety guidelines that we then submitted to the governor's office. And then we waited, and we finally heard back. And, the main thing that the governor's office was slightly worried about was, keeping talent safe. And so we kind of worked with them a little bit to compromise how to get that going. And then we got approval, which is very exciting. And essentially now there is that state guidance that we're all talking about. It's up on the governor's website. It's also on our website. But something that's really interesting to note is, it's a 2-page document. It's very basic and consistent with all the other industries that were getting approval. So it looks very similar to, restaurants and construction and hair salons, all these other industries, because, they want to keep consistency across the boards, and it's covering those big pillars, right? So like masks, social distancing, sanitation, symptom checks, kind of the same stuff that everyone else has to do, which is great. And that is a state requirement. Now, every production, regardless of size, has to follow those guidelines. And you're allowed to film now, if you follow those guidelines, if you are in a county that is phase 2 or above. And that's up on the website. The other thing, though, I do want to mention is we worked really hard on putting together a resource page on our website that has all sorts of production resources for people who are getting ready to go back. Because in addition to the state's government guidance, we've also put up that original guidance we wrote with the task force, because it's very in-depth and very film specific. So it's very, I highly suggest you look at that in addition to the state guidance, because we really took a lot of time to think about all the ins and outs of a film set, because, the governor's office, they aren't as familiar as film as our task force is. And so we really worked hard to do departmental breakdowns and things to consider during pre-production, production, post-production. So if you really are going to be filming, please take in consideration, obviously, the state guidelines, but then also that additional work that we did for you, because we want everyone to be able to do it safely. So I tried to keep it brief. Sorry.
No, I think that was great. I having been part of most of all those meetings, they were fantastic, and with such great leadership from Washington Filmworks. And it was great also to see a lot of people from across the state on these Zoom meetings that you guys set up. But just to share a little bit about those meetings, can you maybe pick a couple particular interesting conversations that we had there, around the subject matter on the early stages, and how the thinking and how people were sharing information with each other?
Yeah, I mean, something that was really nice is that we were all in the same boat. Everyone was being affected by this, and everyone wanted to figure out how to get back safely together. And so that was kind of what guided our conversations a lot. There are a lot of things to consider on a film set that other industries don't have to consider, like talent, the safety of talent, especially when they have to be on screen and you don't necessarily want them to be wearing masks. How do you go around that? Equipment, different departments share tools, share lenses, camera. How do you not share that, the tools, without, sanitizing in between each use? Or do people have to bring their own tools to set now? Catering and craft services, like, back pre-COVID, it was all, a buffet style. We all ate together, and it was very, like lunchroom style, and that's not going to be okay anymore. And so all those different, very specific film things that we really had to consider and talk about with everyone and get everyone's perspective. Because again, different departments have different insight, different levels of production have different insight. And so yeah, the conversations were really, really valuable and really important, and I'm glad that everyone who's a part of it, they gave a lot of their time. We met, I mean, we're still meeting, 2 months every week. It's a lot of dedication on the part of everyone. So.
And there's a lot of dedication from Washington Filmworks, because besides helping us put those together, you guys also still do your other job, which is trying to promote our state as a place for people to come and shoot and bring their projects. So, and your small staff's been split in many different directions. Are you guys starting to get more calls now that we are officially open?
Yeah, we are. I had an ongoing list of people who kept calling while we were shut down, wanting to know when we'd be open. And, because everyone's in a weird spot right now where the whole country, not all the film industries are open. We're one of the few that do have the green light to go right now. And so, a lot of people checking in all the time, and I had this list. But the minute we got approval, I sent it out to all those producers and telling them we're here, we're ready, but, follow these safety guidelines. So yeah, we're definitely getting a pickup of projects that are excited to finally be able to come here and get their projects done.
We will share a little later, but we have a bunch of links of stuff that from your guys' website. But in particularly, I wanted to share, if we could, the checkoff list, gentlemen, if we could bring that up. And maybe, Kendra, if you can just kind of talk over what this document's about.
Yeah, so we put together, like I said, on our website, there is a resources page specifically for productions who are getting geared up to go back to work. So we created a lot of resources that you can download and you can use, you can customize however you need to make your set safe. This particular checklist is essentially a checklist for all the state guidance. So if you are checking all these boxes, then you are following the state guidance and you should be good to go. So again, in addition to this, we also have different signage that you can download and post around your set. We have links to access to PPE, different training kits, sample safety plans, training videos. We've really tried to compile as many resources as possible to make it as easy as possible for you to have a safe set. And again, that's all on our website. And if you follow this checklist, we basically copy and paste from the governor's guidance, but we just made it a lot prettier.
And obviously, I'm assuming your office is open for questions if producers or production companies have questions about if they're doing it properly or what they need to consider that they maybe not have thought of.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's most of my days now, is just answering all these questions. So I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has. And, even if we don't have answers, because again, kind of like what Melissa was saying, like we're in this weird period where we're still trying to figure everything out. We will definitely try to find an answer for you. And we're always open, and yeah, please reach out, because we want everyone to be doing things safely. And so don't hesitate. If you have a question about something, we are here to help.
Listen, on behalf of our of Spokane industry folks that work, we thank you so much, Washington Filmworks, and you and Amy and Julie and everybody there, that so much hard work you guys put into getting this to happen, and we appreciate it tremendously. But I would like to do something right now, a little different. I want you to take off that Washington Filmworks hat, and I want you to put on your independent filmmaker hat. And let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about those of us who want to create content during these times, and we're going crazy, right? For anybody who's watching this who knows me, you know that I live and breathe on set. That's where I want to be all day long. And I can be there for hours, and I have no problem. But we haven't been able to, so we're dying and itching to get back. As a creative, how are you feeling about it right now? What are your thoughts?
Okay, taking off the Filmworks hat, putting on the filmmaker hat. I personally don't like leaving my house. We are still very much in the middle of a global pandemic. And it's very exciting we got approval, but I think it's important for people to understand why we worked so hard to get that approval. Because like I said before, Washington Filmworks is an economic development organization. It is our job to make sure that there are jobs in the film industry available for people. So of course we needed to open up that industry. So for people who film is their livelihood, it's the way they pay their rents and put food on the table, that they have that option if they're comfortable to go out and, make their living on a film set. So that's why we got approval so quickly and why we're trying to make sure it's, as safe as possible. But for the projects that are more passion projects, student projects that really don't have a timeline or aren't life and death scenario, like I personally am not comfortable being on set for those type of productions because there's really no need for that right now. I feel like if there's a silver lining in all of this, is now is the time to really take time with yourself to be creative and get all those writings done that you wanted, that's been on your back burner. So sit down and write that screenplay you've always wanted to write. Take those courses that online to refine your editing skills. Really take the time to work on you as a filmmaker, refine all those skills. So when you do feel comfortable getting out there again, that you are ready to go. I like to think of it as a year-long creative retreat for all of us. So that's just my personal opinion. I'm really working on some scripts I've been wanting to work on. I'm learning to sew, which I know that film related, but I've always wanted to, and I'm really taking time to just think about my projects really. And also, if you have a project that you do want to film soon, that's great, but maybe take extra time in that pre-production, because we don't really have, in the film industry, we don't have the luxury of time that often, and right now we do. So you can really sit with your projects, plan it to a T, really make those creative decisions, and make the best of it. So again, that's my personal preference, to use this time to be at home and work on my craft rather than out in the streets filming. But again, everyone's different, everyone's situation is different, and I completely understand if, film is your livelihood, you need to be making money. That's why we did that for you. That's why we got that approval for you, so you can do that.
No, you and I have had this conversation before a couple times, but I think that it's, you brought up two really good points, which I really like. One is the fact that when we're busy and we're doing so much production, we feel like we don't have enough time to do to finesse some of our other skill levels in production, right? Maybe that's what this time is for. If you're a director, shooter, and have a little bit of editing skill, maybe finessing more on the editing side of it. I know some people who have no skills on the editing side or technical understanding, so maybe this is the time to do that. So this is definitely a time for us to expand ourselves as artists by looking back at what we can sharpen in our toolkit. But with that being said, there's also, I think you and I were talking about, there's creative ways of still being creative and working. And I think you nailed it on the head when you said pre-production component. I think that the independent filmmakers sometimes forget the old school of doing this. So if I'm the storyteller, why not work on my script, get a bunch of friends to do Zoom readings, do the readings of the script, listen to it, and keep developing stuff and figuring out all the pre-stuff. Because I still think we could be creative in that end without putting it to safety people in a risky, unsafe position by having come on set. Sadly enough, Harem and I were just talking this morning about the fact that we hit a number yesterday of 149, I believe, of here in Spokane County, which is not a good direction we want to be going. So we need to be finding ways to be creative and still express ourselves and deliver an outlet for ourselves creatively. So what other ideas do you think we could do, people could be doing besides going straight out to shooting? So we talked about doing Zoom readings of their scripts and developing it. What else could they be thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, another thing that's a silver lining in all of this is that we're really seeing people getting very innovative with storytelling, which is really exciting because hopefully, it will stick after this is all over, like these different forms of storytelling. It's opened up a new venue. So, I mean, if you can do animation, I envy you because I feel like animation is really doing well right now because you can be doing that at home. There's, you said Zoom readings for like rehearsals and stuff, but there's also the possibility of making a film via Zoom. We've seen that. I think it was the Parks and Rec special episode. That was all done via Zoom. I think a lot of shows are doing that now. And honestly, if you really, really want to be filming something, film it in your house with what you have. I mean, my partner and I have been working on a 70s action film starring our dog, so that's how we stay busy. But it's been fun because we've been playing with lights and like funky music. You know, it's just been a fun little craft exercise. And so just thinking of different things like that. Documentaries can have some really innovative methods right now. And I don't know, it just take it as a time to get as creative as possible because, you know, the phrase, you know, limitation breeds creativity. So this is the biggest limitation we've had in a while. So get as creative as possible.
Totally. No, I agree with you 100%. I mean, let's face it, our industry, if anything, has always been innovative, right? We've always been trying to figure out how to crack a nut. And I think this is a nut that we're going to have to figure out. And just so other people are aware of, even the industry itself is looking at it. I was on a Directors Guild webinar a couple days ago, and their discussion was about a handful of shows that are being created. They're being called COVID television, and they're being done all remotely. And they're trying to find new ways of telling those stories. And we were actually talking to one of those directors who was working with Sony on a project like that that'll be coming out soon. So it doesn't stop us from being creative. It just needs us for us to rethink about how we're doing it. If you don't mind, Kendra, unless there's something else you want to bring up, I want to open it up to the questions, assuming we have some questions from Adam.
Cool. All right, so first one's not a question. I'm just supposed to tell Kendra that she's been an incredible and important asset to the Washington Filmworks team. So there you go, Kendra. Thank you for being a part of this and everything else. Outside of that, I got quite a few questions here. We'll start with the safety checklists we were looking at. So should small indie, no-budget films be doing these safety checklists as well?
Yeah, I mean, the checklist is honestly just a tool for your benefit. It's an easy to read, nice, satisfying checkbox to go down all of the governor's requirements. Every set, regardless of size or budget, has to follow the state guidance. And so this checklist is just an easy way to break it down. Because of course, you know, if you go on the governor's website, it's a 2-page document. It's a lot of words. And so we kind of just made it simple so you can really make sure that you're going down the line, getting all of those done the best and having the best set possible.
Yeah, I mean, I'll even add to like the stuff that we're doing here. And guys, I know we didn't plan on this, and this is why I'm here. Can we spin one of these cameras around? So first of all, we're on 3 cameras. There are no operators on it. The operator's on a board. Just kind of spin it around the room, and I just want to show them how we've separated ourselves into different areas. People are working different, you know, spaced out. And just kind of, go ahead, guys. Just show everyone.
See, that's another thing that's like, I noticed that in your interview with Jackie, is you have the plexiglass between you two.
Right there, right there.
Like, that's one of the suggestions in the governor's guidance, like, just as a barrier in between your subjects if they can't be wearing masks. Like, innovative little things like that, like, if you incorporate to your set, it's as safe as possible. Oh, look at everyone. Hi, everyone.
And to be honest, folks, CMTV has been fantastic. We came and we do tests, we kind of set things up, we wipe everything down before any of our guests show up. The point being is that we're working in the environment that we have and making it work, but still trying to produce stuff. More questions?
Well, all right, so next question is, does the film incentive monies that most likely won't be utilized for 2020 get rolled over into 2021?
That is a great question. I'm not 100% sure, but I do know that we have had, like, this is another thing of hope, like, we have had some interest in the incentive for 2020. Who knows if anything's going to happen, but that's another exciting cue that, you know, we are slowly getting back and that people do want to be filming here. And so we're just going to have to see what 2021 looks like. I think it's going to be different for everyone, and we're excited to roll with the punches and see what we can do for the community with the incentive and also just with the other resources we offer.
What do you think of those, and what does the state think of those, or have they been discussed by Washington Filmworks?
Okay, I didn't hear the first part, so sorry.
Oh, sorry. Let me go again. So there are a few productions happening across the U.S. using the Quarantining Together plan. What do you think of those, and what does the state think of those, or have they been discussed by Washington Filmworks?
Yeah, I mean, as of right now, it's not a requirement in the state guidance. And it also depends on budget and size, right? Like if you're a production that has the ability to do that with your crew, I think it's a very interesting, innovative idea. Again, we're all trying things as much as possible, talking with producers to see what's actually working, what's actually not. I'm personally not aware of anyone that's doing it right now in Washington recently, but I know that it is happening, and if they're having success with it, I think that could be, if you are able to afford that for your crew, that might be a really good route to go. But again, like we have a lot of non-union, smaller stuff that incorporate commercial stuff that might be just a couple days, so that might not be a good fit for everyone in our state.
And I think you're right, Ken. I think we're also going to have to wait to see how some of those productions that are happening, like I said earlier in the cast, I have a friend in Vegas working in that scenario. There's some people working in Atlanta that same way. There's in Europe, they're doing the same thing where they've put basically in a bubble, very much like the sport, like NBA has done with the sports, and so has most of European soccer stuff. But again, the cost of that is tremendous. The amount of testing that they're doing is, like I said, 3 times a day he's being tested, and he works in the art department. It'll be interesting to see how that works, you know. And I think if we look at other industries that are trying to do the same thing, let's look at the sports. Right now, Major League Baseball is having issues because they don't have the true bubble thing. So is that going to cause problems for them? So these are all things to consider, that it's not just about creating the safe atmosphere for everyone, but then it's the cost of that, and can you afford to do that much necessary for your project, and is it worth it right now, is the thing you have to consider, and especially for the independents. It's much harder.
All right, next question. Is it a requirement to have a COVID test prior to filming, no matter what size it is?
So that's something that's slightly different than if you are non-union. So the state guidance as of right now doesn't require testing, only because it's not really readily available. Rapid testing isn't readily available in the state of Washington, so the state isn't requiring it. But if you are on a union set, that is going to be a requirement. And so again, like Melissa said, we're kind of in this weird period where we're trying to figure out how to get that to be available for people. If you do, like, you know, take it on to yourself to get your crew tested, great. The only thing that we can offer right now is going to those free testing sites in your city or jurisdiction. But again, we're still trying to figure out when rapid testing will be available, because, like I said, right now it's kind of tricky. So again, we're all figuring it out as we go.
Cool. I think we will have this as our last question on this section at least. And so along those lines, are the rules different, or can the rules be different if you quarantine together? Is it kind of like a case-by-case basis, or is it rigid in that capacity, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. As of right now, it is pretty rigid. It doesn't matter whether you're a 2-person crew or a 50-person crew, if it's a commercial or a feature, all production, regardless of size, has to be following those state guidelines. And those extra steps you take is just, for the safety of your own crew, and please, by all means, do that, but you'll still have to follow those guidelines for now.
Great. Well, hey, Kendra, thank you so much. We are going to share your contact information, if we can bring that up right now. Your contact information, also some links at Washington Filmworks. And like I said, Washington Filmworks is doing an immense incredible job. And there are links there for about any question you could possibly have about production, but also on top of that, PPE resources, resources for if you're having unemployment issues, things like that. They're there to support us, and we really appreciate everything that you guys all are doing in Washington Filmworks. Kendra, thank you for joining us, and come back and visit us soon, I hope.
Yes, no, I know. My mother wants me home, so I'm sure I'll be home soon. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, Kendra, thank you so much. All right, so we're going to move on now, to a live guest. And we have the wonderful Kate Hudson from Visit Spokane. Hi. Waiting to make sure everything's all... There we go. Hey, how are you doing? Great. How are you? I'm doing fine. You know, it's for your well, yesterday in particular, right? Good.
Yeah, things are well.
Good.
Trying to survive COVID like everyone else.
Yes. Tell folks out there a little bit about yourself and what is it you do.
Sure. Okay. We should probably start by talking about what exactly
That'd be great.
a lot of people don't understand what we do. We are a destination marketing organization, so our sole purpose in life is to market the region. So we are in charge of all the marketing campaigns that go out around the world about Spokane. We try to bring in visitors, both leisure and business. We have a huge sales team that just we did before COVID that would book all the conventions and meetings at the public facilities district and book up the convention center. Obviously, all of that has come to a screeching halt. But our main purpose in life is getting the word out about Spokane and the great places.
Great. And besides that, though, on your shoulders, you are one of the two people that I know as the first phone calls you usually get if someone from outside of Spokane wants to come to shoot here.
Exactly. So we, my number is listed. So.
Oh, say. So we're having a technical problem. This is welcome to live television, and we're fixing that.
Can you hear me now?
Yay.
Yay.
Should we do that intro again so it's clearer?
All right.
We're going to go. We're going to back it up. We're going to
All right.
rewind.
I'm good with that.
All right. And hey, Kate,
Hey.
how are you?
Take two.
Yeah.
Right.
Take two, here we go. And Kate Hudson, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
So I work for Visit Spokane. I'm the public relations manager. And we'll talk about what exactly Visit Spokane is. No one knows what we do. It's always a great mystery when I say what I do. But our main goal is to market the Spokane region. And that is to leisure travelers, business travelers. We bring in all of the meetings and conventions that come through the convention center. And I also, my number is listed
On all of the websites whenever someone has a film inquiry. So I'm usually one of the first people that they call when they are scouting locations or considering Spokane as a place to shoot.
It's usually you or Jackie that I
Yeah.
get a phone call from saying, hey, they're looking for this. You
Yep.
know. Now that we officially, have you seen an increase of that kind of
I have.
inquiries?
I was actually surprised. I thought that would come to a screeching halt. But I've actually received several inquiries from production companies in Los Angeles right now that are scoping out Spokane. We have, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it, but we've actually booked companies coming up and they're filming some car commercials up here
Oh, fantastic.
this month. So I was pleasantly surprised that we're still getting business.
Let's share a little bit more about Visit Spokane to give people an understanding. How you describe the stuff you guys do, but really
Broadly.
break it down a little bit more. The different areas that Visit Spokane
Sure.
approaches and what your main goal is, right?
Our main goal is to get people to come visit Spokane, exactly what our name is, because visitors and tourism and hospitality are what keep our community afloat. It's a $1.3 billion industry just in Spokane County. It provides $1,000 in tax relief per household in Spokane County. all the restaurants that we have would not be able to stay afloat if it weren't for tourism and hospitality. So we work hand in hand with the convention center, all the hotels, all our hotel partners and restaurants and event spaces, and we market the region. So we're half sales, half marketing. And since COVID hit, we lost 70% of our staff. We had to lay people off. And we've been mostly sales because conventions aren't coming to Spokane right now. So we have focused our efforts on marketing the region. We know it's just a matter of time that people will come back. We will get conventions back. So we've been focusing our marketing efforts on the drive market. Spokane's actually situated quite well. We were already a drive market here, and we have a 200-mile radius that we get our visitors from. And right now it's the summer of the road trip, so we are capitalizing on that, and we are marketing safety first, and also our outdoor recreation and everything that we have to offer. So we are still working to market the region, and we are having visitors come through.
Are you also working with other organizations like GSI
Yes.
and the county with some of the PPE kind of support for
Yes.
local businesses?
Yes, so we work hand in hand with GSI and also Downtown Spokane Partnership. We've also been working closely with the City of Spokane Valley, City of Liberty Lake, West Plains Chamber, all of these entities that are struggling right now to stay afloat. We are working closely with them, and yeah, we help. GSI is working with the PPP loans right now, and so we right now have just been spreading the word for them, making sure all of our hospitality partners know that these funds are available to apply for. So yeah, we all work together closely.
And did I hear true that there's also some kind of a marketing campaign that's coming up about to promote the local businesses a little bit?
Yes, we are working with Washington Hospitality Association about a Mask Up Washington campaign, and GSI is also working on that. There's also the Washington Tourism Alliance, which is kind of our state tourism board. They are working on a big campaign to rediscover Washington. So that is also kind of going on at the same time. But right now we're focusing on the safety aspect of it, and the Mask Up Washington is the big one that we're really pushing for.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the film stuff, because I know that's
Yeah.
what they're more interested in to
Yes.
talk about. But some of the things that what does Visit Spokane right now do for the film industry community-wise?
So we work closely with you. I work closely with you, and we have created a nice new microsite on the Visit Spokane website. I was just looking at it while I was listening to you and Kendra talk. And it looks great. We're trying to get granular, because a lot of the calls that I get from production companies that are interested in coming to Spokane are usually about equipment rental, trying to find people that they can hire here locally instead of bringing up their own crews to save money. So we have really been working on this site, and I think it's looking good, but we are putting phone numbers and production companies and everything that anyone would need to know that they can find online. And if I strongly suggest everyone looking at it, because we want to make sure we get everyone on.
Yeah, we're going to definitely share the link. And,
Yeah.
and this is probably a great example of using COVID, because we had been talking about this for Spokane Film Project, reached out to you guys, and we've been talking about this for a couple of years and slowly trying to figure out how to put it together, and using this COVID time to really do.
Yeah.
And we've got the way the relationship's working is if you would like to be listed as a crew member, you can list yourself on the Spokane Film Project, and there's a link directed right to your site.
Right.
But then likewise, we worked with you guys on creating a production house list of all the production houses, and that exists on your site,
Yes.
where it has their websites, and there people can reach out to them for rental of equipment, and et cetera. We're still almost there on the location picture site, and as well as a list, which we're like 90% there, list of every movie ever shot in Spokane.
Yes.
With photograph, poster, the year it was done, and all that. Because we should be proud. I mean, there's over 50 films that have been shot in this city.
it's such a diverse location. And people are always, when they call and make initial inquiries, they're always so surprised at what Spokane has to offer. Because we have, river shots, we have bridges, we have gritty urban alleys with graffiti. So yeah, we need to have that on there so that people can see how diverse our region is.
And we're close. We're almost there.
We are.
I think
We
we're
are
almost
so
there.
close.
We're so close.
But we're still fleshing it out, and this has been a great time to work on it because everyone is stuck at home.
Well, and again, I want to thank Visit Spokane staff. They've been fantastic in trying to figure out how we can put this together.
Yeah, and we love working with the Spokane Film Project and promoting our city. We like to promote Spokane in every way we possibly can, and film is the perfect way to do it. And it's so fun to see how excited the community gets when there is something filming here and how proud everyone is of the films that have been filmed here. I'm still proud of Vision Quest, and that thing came out like 30 years ago.
It's on that list.
I know.
You know.
I love it. But yeah, we did, it was fantastic. We actually did a blog a couple months ago about the top films that were filmed in Spokane. If you want to see Spokane virtually, this is a great time to sit down and watch these films that were filmed in Spokane. So we have that on our blog as well. So.
No, and it's true because I literally was made a new acquaintance on a Zoom with the DGA, the Directors Guild, and he's in LA, and he goes, and I go, hey, I'm in Spokane. He goes, hey, I just watched Vision Quest last night. And he goes, I love that city. I want to go up and see it. I'm like, oh, soon.
It's, it comes in handy for me when I get inquiries from production companies, and I say, you know what? Watch these films. You will see some of the ideas that you can get from the locations in these films, and they always come back and say, you know what? I watched that Macklemore downtown video, and is that really? I had one guy last year say, "Is that really downtown Spokane?" And I said, "Yes, it's us. It's real and it's spectacular."
Yeah, and Jackie mentioned that when she was here with us, and it's something that we, as in the industry, and I know you as well know, but. The ability for downtown Spokane to be shot for so many vast different places, right? I mean, I've been on film sets where we shot it for DC, we shot it for Virginia, we shot it for New York. Central Park was Riverfront Park, right? With a little VFX city in the background. But besides that, just maybe 20, 30 minutes outside of that, the terrain changes drastically. Which I know we capitalize majorly on Z Nation, but it's something that we here were so aware of.
Yeah.
You know.
It's fantastic. You've got the mountains at Mount Spokane. You can go out and be on the Palouse and do these incredible road trip scenes out in the farmland. It's very diverse. And when people start realizing how easy it is to get around, that also is helpful. Because, you have a lot of people in LA who are used to being stuck in traffic. So that's another easy sell for us is how easy it is to get around. It's cheaper to stay here. You can find cheaper accommodations. So Spokane. I'm always selling it, and I'm always selling us, and it's always such a pleasure. I take great joy in seeing these production companies that actually do commit and come up. So I'm excited about this one that's filming this month. It's just commercials, but they're national commercials, and it'll be wonderful for Spokane. And I'm excited to see it, and it's more ways that Visit Spokane can market the region and say, look at how awesome we are.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I purposely put you last on our panel because I wanted to end like in a, at least bring it all into a positive place. And I know how much you love this community and how well you represent it. And how you represent our industry when they reach out for those phone calls.
It makes me happy when I get those phone calls. I always love them, and a lot of times I don't think they end up deciding on Spokane, but the ones that do come, it feels like I'm fishing, and I reeled in a good one, and it makes me happy. And I just hope that it benefits all of you, and that they're renting equipment locally, and that they're using all of the crew locally, and that's all I can think about, especially in these COVID times. Everyone's struggling, so.
Definitely.
Yeah, anything to bring jobs into the community, so.
Right.
Yeah.
So we will, again, I reiterate that if you want to get on the crew list, there's 2 ways to get on the crew list. Number 1 is become a Spokane Film member, which costs you nothing. You can get on the membership, on our membership crew list, which then gets shared to their site. That's number 1. Also, I forgot to mention, Washington Filmworks has a real real crew. I'm sorry, a real crew, and you can find their thing, and that could put you on a state level to add yourself as a crew person on there. And I think it's also important that we as community members don't forget to sell our community, right?
Yes. And film is the perfect way to do it.
It's like a postcard that
It is.
sells it easily,
Yeah.
right?
And the great thing about it, and again, I said it already, but the community gets so excited when there are film shoots here. And there's a sense of pride that Spokanites, I think, feel when our community is people went gaga for Z Nation and the Macklemore video. I remember when they were filming that, everyone lost their minds. It was so exciting. And so the Spokane community loves having these projects here. And we're proud of it. And we should be.
We
because
definitely
it's fun.
should be. Definitely should be. A great little side story was we were, I think, year 4 of Z Nation, and I was with a buddy of mine who was wearing his sweatshirt from Z Nation at David's Pizza, having pizza, and a woman watched, because you guys part of the shoot, and we go, yeah. She still lives here. Her father and mother had moved away, but they've been watching the show, and they came back on vacation to tour all the spots that we had shot at,
it.
so they could see those spots where we were shooting at.
I love it.
And they were so happy and so excited. It was such a wonderful experience.
That's awesome.
Listen to that.
Wonderful.
Yes, Mr. Harem, do we have any
Not ones that I was able to give them, just site links and stuff like that. So,
site links? Okay.
Yeah, no questions yet.
So, anything else you want to? I mean, if you folks have some questions out there, this is the time. I'm going to ask, Kate here for any last minute kind of push for Spokane on things that are happening in our community that we should be aware of. Because look, it's not just film production; it's our community as a whole. It's the arts. It's our restaurants that are struggling, our businesses that are struggling. We have to support them. We have to figure out a way to be able to support them. Anything you want to share?
It's just been a really tough time for the tourism and hospitality sector. We are struggling. We've lost 60 conventions, which is a total of $35 million in lost business for the community. We've lost Hoop Fest, which is $50 million. We've lost Bloomsday, which is $12 million. The NCAA tournament, that was, $40 million with or $20 million with the PNQ as well. So we've lost all of this business. Our restaurants are struggling, but we're still working. We're still plugging away, and I'm still working my buns off, marketing the region and pitching Spokane stories to magazines. And I'm going to continue doing that. I'm going to continue talking to production companies that are interested in coming to Spokane and selling it as hard as I can. So I ask you just to make sure that you give us your information. We'll put it on the site. Send any questions that you might have my way. I'm always willing to help scouts find locations and help you out, and send them your names and numbers and get some work going here in Spokane, because I love film in Spokane. It makes me happy. I get so excited when I see, every time I watch Vision Quest, I still get excited. I'm like, oh, there's the
We are
North
going to
Street
share
Bridge.
your information on a card before we let you go. But the same thing, I want to say the same thing I said to Jackie. I've known you for several years now. We've worked together on several different kind of components in the film stuff, and appreciate so much what Visit Spokane tries to do for our community, as well as for our industry.
It's important. It's important to us. It helps us market the region. Any little thing that makes our community better and more exciting. The Spokane Arts Group, we share an office with them, so we're very supportive of the arts. It's important because I think that the arts make a community. We can be a city, but I think the arts make a community. So
Well said.
I love the work that you're doing.
Well
so
said,
keep it
Evan.
up, everyone.
Yes. Well, on that note, let's share her information there. This is how you can reach to Kate, as well as their website information. And if you if you want to get listed in the crew list, go to Spokane Film Project's website and fill it out and ask to become a member, and it'll automatically be shared on Visit Spokane's website. Oh, we have a question.
Hey, I got a
Yay.
question. I hope I can answer it.
Okay.
Woo, I'm
Let's see
sweating a
if
little bit.
I can't hear myself, but I'm assuming I'm on. So if someone contacts Kate about specific crew available, does she direct them to the site or to a person?
I will make sure your information gets put on the site, and then I will, anytime a production company calls, I'm more than happy to share the site, and then also it's great now that we're building this because I have a list of names and numbers and contact information, whereas before I would just blindly text one and say, help, I need this.
Between I and Lori, I remember it would be the two of us, we'd get these calls, okay, they're looking for this, and we'd like make a list for you and then send it to you, right?
Yes.
So-
So first and foremost, I would put your information on our website, and then when production companies are searching Spokane, that'll pop up, and they can look at that before they even reach out to me and decide what they want to do. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's important for folks out there to understand. I've had the interaction with these companies out of town where they're like surprised that we even have production houses with gear
Yes.
that will rent it, that we have a crew base,
Yeah.
and a crew base that actually knows what they're doing,
Right.
you know. So it was, I think there was a couple of, we've had this conversation before where there's been some productions who have just shot on the other side of the border or in Coeur d'Alene, and they were renting gear all the way from Seattle because they thought that was the nearest houses and stuff.
Yes.
And this is really where our discussion started
Yes,
happening.
and that's where the website came about, and making sure the crew lists are on there and all the contact information, because I get a lot of surprised people as well.
Yeah.
So this website is very important. We've been working on it, and I'm so glad that it's finally happening. So we just want to make sure we get everybody on there so that we can get you guys some work.
Yes, and if you are a production house and you're not on the list for some strange reason, please reach out to Kate
Yeah,
directly.
definitely.
We as Spokane Film Project, we generated the first pass of that and passed on the information to her.
Yes.
But reach out to them directly, and if you're on the crew base, go through us, and we can help that facilitate that
Yes.
back to Kate that way.
Yeah, and we're still working on it. So if anyone has any suggestions about
Yeah.
what we could add, we're still putting, film location suggestions with pictures and films that were created here. We're still, working on adding that. But if you see something that you think should be on there that's not, please reach out and let us know, because we want to make sure that we're covering all of our bases.
Adam, anything else?
I don't think so. I think the only other question was where to find the film section on the Visit Spokane site, and there's either the direct link, which is Visit Spokane Film in Spokane, I believe, or if you go to the site, I believe you can also search for
Correct.
film, and it'll bring you to that page as
Yeah.
well.
I think
Yes.
as soon as you type in film on your site, it brings you right up to that
Yep.
page.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
the easiest way to access and find us if you don't want to have a direct link. So
Yeah, so
Well,
Thank
thank
let
you.
us know.
Yeah.
We just want to help and support the arts and film in Spokane. So
Well, thank you so much for coming
thanks
today.
for having me.
No, it was
I-
good seeing you. I haven't
I
seen you in a
know.
while.
I know, even if it's through the glass.
Right. Oh, well, listen, folks, thank you so much for coming. This will be airing on CMTV, plus as well as our last panel that we did on makeup and costume designers. We're going to kind of pump that up. We'll also post it on our SFP Facebook page, what dates they'll be airing on CMTV, and then we will be making this live on our Spokane YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the channel. It helps us gives us more flexibility. For those of you that play with YouTube know that. And 149 as a Friday, folks. We need to bring that down. We need to bring those numbers down, and we need to work together as a community to do that, because we need to move forward and beyond this. And as the motto is, we got this together. Thank you very much, and have a good day. Am I still on? And I forgot to add, this program from this point forward is being brought to you by Spokane Arts Saga Grant. Thank you very much, Spokane Arts, for letting us have that, and we will continue bringing more programming for that. That is the worst ending ever, but guys, have a good day. I'm done.